I actually want to take this opportunity to take a step back and look at the broader picture of AI and technology and why we're actually bothering to sit here and listen to this stuff, or why we are bothering to implement it. And maybe even give you some hints as to how to go about judging what technology does for you at this point and what it can do for you in the future. I know with all of these conferences, when you talk about future technology or advanced technology or AI, there's always this one talk about, will a robot take my job? Or when will the robot take my job? The more pessimistic variant of that. So this is not it. That's not that talk. This is about why should we bother with robots at all? And if you think about it, a lot of people immediately jump to cost savings, and that's of course true. You want to save cost. But I think in general, when you deal with experts, when you deal with humans who do very difficult work, there's actually a resource that is, I believe, more valuable than money. And that has to do with this little fellow. That's a goldfish, apparently. So what we share with that goldfish is the average attention span. A human, just as a fish, has an attention span of 8 to 10 seconds, which is involuntary attention. So something grabs my attention, and then after 10 seconds, I move on to the next thing. So I'm obviously on a budget, but it's not a money budget, it's an attention budget. And extend that by exercising willpower and turning attention into concentration. And that's actually the difference between those two things. So I direct my concentration to a task, but even that concentration will wear out after, I don't know, for a young kid today, it's probably 3.5 minutes. For most of us, it's going to be 35. So we are on a very tight budget that is in some respects tighter than the money budget. And I believe that this attention budget, this concentration budget that we all have to deal with is actually the reason why we want to bother with technology, why we want to bother with software. If you think about self-driving cars, I don't believe anyone is actually well, some people might, but very few people are longing for the advent of the self-driving car in order to get rid of those beautiful mountain drives on curvy roads, right? You still want to do those, potentially. What you want to get rid of is your super boring commute. You don't want to spend 2 hours driving between two white lines when that's just highly repetitive and uninteresting. You don't want to spend your concentration budget, the small budget that you have during that day to exercise willpower onto a given task, on just getting to work and just getting that done. And that is really the reason, I believe, why we're so fond of technology, is that we feel that this tight budget that we have can be spent more effectively, can be spent at the right time, and can be spent in the right way, on the right tasks. And I really urge you, if you kind of stop listening now and go get a coffee, just take away that the attention budget is really what we want to be thinking about when dealing with technology. And I'm now going to talk about 3 different levels of dealing with that attention budget or that concentration budget with software, 2 of which have nothing to do with AI, 1 of which doesn't even have anything to do with robots, so I'm kind of cheating on the title a little bit. But there's several ways that technology can help us focus, direct, and budget that attention when we're working with our day-to-day tasks. The first level that people tend to underestimate and often forget is workflow and UI. So user experience, the user interface of a tool, it's not about beauty, it's not about hipness, it's not about, well, fun in a certain way. It's about directing attention to the right things at the right time and spending as little concentration on grasping some concepts as you possibly can. And I always get very scared when I see people in companies or in government organizations that actually do important things, work with tools that look like they kind of dropped out from the 90s. Because you need workflow and UI to help direct your attention to what's important. And I actually have an example of that from our own software. So it's a negative example. People will probably hate me for showing that. So this is a list of people. When you think about an e-discovery process, you look at a lot of millions of documents, emails, and so on. And our software gives you a way, just as a side note, gives you a way to kind of aggregate that and understand, okay, these are the people that are interacting, these are the locations, organizations, key terms, this is PRI that hovers around that document set. And that's one visualization that we offer to do that. And it's basically just a list of people's names, and it's a frequency on the right-hand side. So there's 102 documents mentioning Ron Washington, whoever that is. And there's pretty much an order to that, depending on the prominence in the document set based on frequency. And that requires a lot of concentration. You have to direct your attention to that. You have to read into it to draw conclusions and understand what it's actually telling you. And at the same time, it punishes you by not telling you all that much. It just tells you like 5 items on top and 5 items on bottom, and then you have to show more or interact with it in some other way. If what you're interested in is who is actually doing what to whom in this document set, this is actually much better. Because this actually grabs your attention right away. I'm pretty sure everybody who didn't watch the screen before now watches it because it looks funky. It conveys the same information. Nobody cares about the absolute numbers. Who cares that it's 102 Barack Obamas or 591 Washingtons? What you're interested in is the relative size of these people in that document collection. So who's talking to whom about what, with what frequency? You can totally grasp that. So it's more interesting, it's more captivating, it conveys more information at the same time. It allows you to go deeper into this kind of smaller areas of this picture. And it gives you some kind of some affordances that invite you to play with the data. It gives you a slider that helps you kind of scroll back and forth through time, like a time machine. How did conversations change over time in that document set? And it invites you to interact with the data visualization, which means it actually grabs your attention so you don't have to put effort into focusing on it, which is great. So that's workflow and UI, first level of attention budgeting. The second level is what we call simple automation, or some tools are called robotic process automation. It's pretty much in the same area. But what I mean by simple automation, this is software that just does repetitive tasks that require no intelligence. And it's super sad to see how often humans are actually still doing those tasks. They should not. That's not what we want to put our attention budget into. So this is again a tool from my company. It analyzes, on the right-hand side, it analyzes loan applications in the US. So you have this 800-page monster that you throw into the software, and it will then tell you, okay, these are the 20 document types that I found here. These are the actual most recent versions of each of those document types, and it will later help you process those documents. Very nice thing. But what I found is that people still, when they use that software, they often do this. They go to SharePoint, download a loan application, upload the loan application, and then let the tool do its job. And if you do that once, that's fine. If you do it as they do, 340,000 times over time, it's not fine. It's stupid. It's a repetitive task that you should not direct your attention to. And don't forget about these pieces of software that can help you do that. There's software there for doing that, which will basically take that task away. So that's simple automation. And I love simple automation, although we're an AI company, because it's binary. It either works or not. So that it downloads stuff, it uploads stuff. If it's broken, it doesn't. If it's not broken, it does a perfect job pretty much all the time. So there's no uncertainty with this. It's automating a repetitive task that you do day to day, and the outcome is predictable, right? If you go back to work tomorrow or on Monday, just watch yourself how often you do these sorts of things. Downloading, uploading, moving files left and right. It's not where you want to put your attention budget. And the third level, that's now intelligent automation. It's AI. And that's AI having intelligence in the name sounds grand and sounds lovely, but the problem with intelligence is that it has opinions. Every intelligence kind of also means that you're bringing an uncertainty factor into it. And AI will have opinions just as a coworker that you bring into a process. It has certain biases because it's been trained, no matter if you trained it or if it comes pre-trained, and it has certain properties that mean it's good at some jobs and bad at others. So intelligent automation means that you're now, again, an example from that application I showed before, you now go into this residential loan application and you have software figure out what it's about. You have software analyze, okay, this part is actually the borrower's name, this part is the property address, this part is the interest rate, whatever. and then put that into a representation that can be consumed by other software tools, or put it into visual representation that can be consumed by a human. This is AI to my definition, because it exercises judgment. It has opinions, right? So it identifies a borrower's name, and now the outcome is no longer binary. It's not identifying a borrower or not identifying a borrower. The outcome is actually opinionated, which means the borrower's name might be identified but wrong. It might be incomplete. It might be misspelled. It might be misextracted. It might be the OCR has gone wrong. It might actually extract the application ID as the borrower's name or something like that. Of course, this being our software, will never do that, I'm sure. But there's a possibility, right? Now we have software that actually exercises judgment on your documents. So you have to be aware of that. And I think what we love about AI is that it gives us a much broader level, or much higher level, much broader way to optimize our attention budget. It can now do much more than what simple automation can do. It can offload us of even more repetitive and boring and menial tasks. It will never offload us of everything. So no robot will ever take your job. But it will help us kind of go back to what is actually important. It will help us spend that limited amount of attention that we have on the tasks that are actually relevant to the success of the project. And it will put, for instance, if you think about e-discovery, it's simple as putting those 20 documents that actually are important in the first slots of the review queue, so that people actually review those documents when they come in the morning and are still fresh and are less likely to overlook things. So that's where AI can really excel and help us optimize that attention budget if we manage to treat it as a coworker. It has opinions, it has bad days, depending on whatever factors might play into it, and it has a margin of error that we have to deal with. So it needs to be embedded in a process that is still governed by humans, and that process should be big enough that you catch all the errors, but small enough that you actually optimize your attention budget. And that's one of the things you should take away from this. You should treat it like a coworker in all aspects. You should interview it. So before bringing in an AI, find out what its opinions are, how it's usually dealing with stuff. It will annoy you eventually, that is for sure, with some bad habits. And if it continuously doesn't perform, you should fire it. Simple as that. There shouldn't be a reason to kind of try and make a software work for years if it just doesn't function for the problem that you're trying to solve. Don't bring in the technology first and then find the problem later. Try and find the problem in your process that you want to solve with technology. So 3 takeaways from this. Remember the goal, optimize attention. That's the goal of all software, I believe. Beyond optimizing cost, it's that much more valuable resource of human concentration that we can exercise, and that's very, very limited. Don't underestimate the lower levels, which means don't underestimate the impact of UX. Don't underestimate the possibility to automate a lot of stupid things that you do every day. There's tools for that on a personal level. There's tools for that on a corporate level. And treat AI like a colleague. Interview it. Let it work. Control what it's doing and fire it if it doesn't perform. Thank you.